You're setting them up to be murdered?
Happens every time Chief O'Brien goes away. We seem to be having a lot of system glitches.
We just get Klingons to do it for us.
That's right. Star Trek DS9, Season 6, Episode 15, Honor Among Thieves is over, and it has been since 1998. But we're just getting started here on this Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, to review an episode from 25 years ago as we continue our ongoing quest to talk about every episode of Star Trek DS9, review it, discuss it. I'm Dave Mader, joined with my brother Jeff Mader. Hey, Jeff.
Hey.
And Jaemeel Robinson. And
Salute.
Kevin Millard.
Oh,
We're all here, and Davan couldn't make it. Davan Skelhorn couldn't make it, but he did mail in his rating through. Well, he hacked into the Bank of Boleus and it got to me, but it's a long story, guys. Honor Among Thieves, the 15th episode of this season 6, and we were kind of like, oh yeah, this episode. This is this season, isn't it? Although I didn't mind it as much as I sort of remembered it. So Jaemeel, I want to go to you first. How do you feel about Star Trek Star Trek?
I like Star Trek a lot.
Deep Space Nine, Honor Among Thieves, more specifically.
This specifically. Well, I wanted to get the positives out of the way because I do not like this episode at all. How can I, in all honesty, give One Tiny Ship the rating I gave it and the criticisms of that episode and not bestow the same to this episode?
You got to be consistent.
It feels absolutely out of place, right? And I'm like, why am I being withheld the story I actually care about with this about things I don't care about at all?
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff. Let's go to you next. Do you agree with Jameel's sentiments, or are you of a different mind here?
mostly yes, I agree with Jaemeel's sentiments, but I would much rather watch this episode than The Little Ship. The Little Ship is a silly episode for me. This episode deals with a lot more deep kind of. It's Donnie Brasco. I mean, at the end of the day,
it's Donnie Brasco.
That's what I'm watching. That movie came out a year before this episode aired. I just think it's not that great. Like I had better memories of this episode, but overall, the themes of the episode I do hold superior to The Little Ship.
This is the story of the little ship that took a little trip.
All right, let's go to Kevin next.
This episode's okay, I guess. It's not really Star Trek, though, at all. It's O'Brien's new show. Like, was this supposed to be a spin-off for O'Brien?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the fun facts what they were going with here. We were kind of chatting about it today, and Davan, who's not with us, he's a big fan of this episode, and I agree with his points on it. He said, this is an episode that features some great acting, and I don't even mind the way it's written, but it doesn't seem to fit very well into Star Trek, and because it's this planet we've never been to. We've heard of the Orion Syndicate before, and we know that there are criminals in the Star Trek universe, and it's kind of like, well, what's the mob up to during World War II? I don't know. Like, is it super relevant? Maybe. The Vorta showing up is the only thing that makes it kind of make sense, but
it doesn't need to make sense for me to enjoy the episode, I guess, which is the contradictory thing to the One Little Ship episode. But at the same time, I just more am willing to chew on this meat of the whole mob aspect and the mob life and how people act within that life. It doesn't make sense in a Star Trek episode. It's weird. But when Section 31 first happened, you're like, why? What is this? And it's, now it's been retconned so many times. You know what I mean? Like, I just think not everything has to stick on the wall that they throw, but, and this one didn't, I don't think.
There's like a sequel to this episode we get next season.
I know.
With Ezri.
It didn't stick either.
That's worse.
Right.
Okay, let's go through the screenshots, see if we can remind ourselves anything. We come to this world, Fasaria, is that what it's called, or something like that? It seems like a not so nice planet. It's almost like if Hamilton was a planet, And
It's where the government would go do their retreat.
yeah, right. And we're like, okay, where are we? We're in some like kind of industrialized city. We see this bar, and we go inside the bar, and there's this. I think that's a Euridian. We see people doing drugs and using paper money, and it's meant to feel like a seedy lounge, mob lounge here we're going for. O'Brien, he's the tinkerer at the bar, you know, as bar patrons do. Working on things, and these mob guys are here in the background, you know, and they're talking about where they're gonna steal lunch, I think, or something like that.
Steal lunch.
Yeah, like they're just a bunch of
I know.
yeah, like, and then they're like, hey, don't use that console, or don't use that communicate, like phone booth is basically kind of what it is, or like a data port. And they're like, no, that we're gonna use it. And so they send over this guy, and we get to see this data port, which we've seen before. This was set up in the previous episode when Odo had his girlfriend, who ended up being like an undercover agent who was trying to bust the Orion Syndicate. So it seems to fall into these worlds. People, and basically they allow people to almost do like a Borg-esque uplink with technology. It's like a technopathic link here, and he's hacking in. He's doing the thing with his fingers. The mobster guy here who works for, I'm trying to remember the main mobster's guy name. Is it
Bilby?
Bilby, thank you.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, where are we going to steal lunch from today? From the government? From the police? No, we did that yesterday." They're just a bunch of like jerks, I guess. But they're likable jerks. And then we see here O'Brien in his undercover role. We're like, "What's O'Brien up to?" Flashing his little red light. Good thing that bowling bartender was looking away.
Yeah, no kidding. Pretty bright light for something covert.
Yeah. It only lasts for an instant, but yeah. And this spikes, they call it spiking, when you get fried with these electrical currents that come out. It froze him, and this gives O'Brien his chance to sort of win over the gangsters by saying, "Oh, he's been spiked, let me get him out of there." And he does his little trick, even though he caused it in the first place, and he falls back. And this is sort of how he initially ingratiates himself to Bilby, seeing that the gangster's data port has now been fried by the incident. Now it needs to be fixed. And apparently their mobster boss, Ramus is his name that we get to learn here. He wouldn't be taking too kindly to having to replace this, because I guess he paid for it in the first place. So Brian, again, gets to offer himself as somebody who could fix it. But how much are you going to pay me to fix it? And he's like, "Do you know who I am? I'm Al Pacino in Donnie Brasco, basically. Forget about it. But I'm Irish." He's like, "Oh, is that a matter of fact? So I'm Johnny Depp then, you're saying?" He's like, "Yes, that's right." And I was like, this is just like the Donnie Brasco story, but in Star Trek, basically, in 40 minutes.
Lefty character, you got the Donnie character, and
yeah, you got the you
got Sonny Black.
You got Sunny Black. You got, and you know, these guys are kind of Sunny Red at times. And yeah, we get this. I guess this is what's his name? The guy who plays like the FBI guy in Donnie Brasco, but in here he's Starfleet Intelligence, not Section 31. He's O'Brien's guy here, and we get a little exposition here. He's like, "I'm sure you'd like to be back on Deep Space Nine. We feel bad about having to use non-Starfleet intelligence." He's like, "Oh, well, I'll be happy once I get back." It doesn't make a lick of sense to me why O'Brien is on this mission.
Because it rhymes.
Huh?
Because it rhymes. Orion and O'Brien.
Why not O'Brien?
Because he's just an engineer, enlisted engineer on Deep Space Nine. He's not. You send like somebody in Starfleet security on this kind of a mission. Like it's not in his skill set.
If there's someone internal, wouldn't Starfleet security also be on the hook for that information? People be able to get that information as well.
Why can't they compromise O'Brien? O'Brien is like the chief of operations.
He's a union man.
He's a union man.
He was a union man.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get this at all.
I-
Like why it's him.
I think
Um,
it isn't the hardest leap of logic overall. This is a person with military experience, has shown that he has pressure under a lot of compromising situations and able to make his way out of it. He is extremely resourceful, and he has a level of grit that a Bashir does not have, certainly. And I would trust him a million times over before I even look in Bashir's direction as someone I would even think could infiltrate any type of organization.
And he's been in a prison in his mind for 50 years.
yeah. Well,
They needed
okay.
someone who would kill his best friend for a loaf of bread.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Well, yeah. I don't know. It just like he's not. He's an enlisted man. That's the other part of this that's odd to me. But anyway, he gets tapped. For whatever reason he agreed to this mission. Although they kind of say you didn't exactly volunteer for this either. But he didn't say he didn't. He was voluntold. I just like Starfleet has so many people that they could send this on. It seems strange to me that O'Brien specifically is tapped, but whatever. It's the story, and it has to be O'Brien. So I'll say my piece on it. And we see him walking down. So O'Brien is on his undercover mission for this episode. That's our opening. Let's get into it.
And they don't even change. Like, look, if you're gonna do a themed episode and it's gonna be a different kind of show, change the theme, change the intro. Yeah,
like they did in Enterprise when they had their Mirror Universe episode.
Yes, that was great. I loved it.
This is Mirror Universe.
No, but he's saying that this is so different of a Deep Space Nine episode that you could not have the DS9 credits at the top. But
yeah, maybe, but I don't think it's that different. Like I just think it's
because we do come back to the station here for at least a few scenes, right, in this episode.
Yeah. Oh God. See we'll get to that part of the episode, but I wish it would have just been the O'Brien stuff. I know you guys are going to say the opposite. No, it brought levity to the episode. It was the only thing I liked.
No,
it wasn't that. This was kind of dumb. I was kind of like with Worf on it, where he's like, I don't get this. Like, so basically it starts off with Odo and Quark both complaining that every time the chief goes away, like everything's breaking down in the security office or in his bar. He can't sell flaming drinks. Kira has to manage this somehow, and then I think that the next part of it is that Bashir complains that his stuff in the infirmary is not working.
Happens every time Chief O'Brien goes away.
Yeah, this is what happens.
Odo says that the security sensors keep setting off false alarms. I doubt it. I think he just doesn't pay attention to them when they go off. He's like, shit, everything is going off. Like
he's just watching Quark. What Quark's
yeah.
We seem to be having a lot of system glitches.
And Worf's not happy about this, guys. He says, I don't get it.
I do not understand why his staff cannot keep the station running in his absence.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Well, and whose fault is that, though?
That's
O'Brien. That's O'Brien's fault.
Yep. Anyway, so yeah, we get the scene here with Sisko holding his baseball, and it's Bashir who's complaining. What do you mean O'Brien's not back? But he goes, "This isn't like you, Bashir. Worf would do this, or Kira would do this, but you.
He doesn't like Bashir. There's so many scenes like this throughout the whole series, and Sisko does not like Bashir.
No, they're not friends.
No,
which is good because like it shows a realistic kind of situation where you're the boss of someone you're not friends with. You work with them, you're cordial, you're professional, but like you're not inviting him to your birthday party.
But he does invite him to his birthday party. But
sure?
I think,
but it's a work birthday party.
It's a work birthday party. You're right.
Different.
Yeah. Like I don't think he. Like you notice, like the parties that he invites Bashir to, they all still wear their uniforms, versus where they put their civilian clothes on. So yeah, you're right. It's a work party, but he was like, "Don't worry, the chief can take care of himself," and that's kind of like where we see here this look from Sisko. He's like, but he's in a dangerous situation. Is kind of what we're meant to take from this. And this is kind of like the last of the cutaways to the station before the end of the episode. The rest of this will just kind of follow O'Brien through his Donnie Brasco journey. Next is he comes back with the data port that, of course, he's repaired for them miraculously, giving it back to this guy. He's one of Bilby, is that his name? Bilby's henchman. And Bilby's impressed by him. He's like, why don't you come with me? You know, this guy, what species is this guy? Is he, I couldn't figure out what aliens these were. If some of them were meant to be native to this planet or what. But Bilby's a human, as is O'Brien, of course. And we see here that both of these like Orion Syndicate henchmen guys that work under Bilby are very suspicious of O'Brien. We then cut away to Bilby's house or apartment or whatever the heck it is. And we meet his cat. I think David also likes this episode because it features a cat heavily. I'm just putting that out there, David.
Is David Look at that cat. That's a cute cat.
It's a nice looking cat. I don't think there's anything wrong with this cat. Brian ends up with this cat by the end, and I wanted to see Keiko's reaction to the cat, but we didn't get that.
Keiko is off with Sabar.
How many times have you seen this cat after this episode?
I don't think we ever see this cat after this, do we?
Yeah, that's what Keiko did.
Put it out the airlock. Oh, I hope.
Yeah,
Well, maybe.
she summoned back evil Keiko for one day.
Okay, cool. Anyway, and then so Bilby then also we see here this picture of his family in the background. He keeps saying, very important to have a family if you're a gangster, I guess, apparently.
A lot of the themes make sense. I get why they do what they're doing. It makes sense for like mob kind of ideas. Like, you know, the family usually does come first. Watch any mob movie. It's all about family and hanging out and like the loyalty and all these different things that go really counterintuitive or to their business and the way they operate. So like I get a lot of the themes that the show is going for. The problem with this episode is not that. The problem with this episode is the chemistry, in my opinion, between Bilby and O'Brien. It's not good. I don't like the performance from really either guy. I mean, I think Cole Meany brings more than Tate does, but I don't like Nick Tate's performance.
I don't think it's the performances that bother me at all, because I think I think that both actors do bring a lot to this. The part I can't reconcile with this episode is O'Brien. The fact that he's so sympathetic towards this guy. He watched this guy kill a guy. Okay, we're not quite there in the screenshot. He watches this guy who sold him some faulty disruptors, and he justifies it by saying, "Do you know what would happen if I gave faulty disruptors to my boss? That doesn't mean you get to kill this guy." And I don't understand. O'Brien watches him do it right in front of him, you know, and then he knows that this guy. He also knows Bilby is going to go and kill this Klingon ambassador just because he was told to, and he has no problem with it either. You know, and not to mention what that's going to do to the war. He doesn't care about any of that. So I don't have a ton of sympathy towards Bilby, wife and family or not, you know, cat or not. I don't care. Like it's he might be a perfectly good guy in terms of hanging out with you, but on the other hand, he does grab O'Brien by the throat a few times, and he does, you know, threaten violence and kill people, and he tries to make them eat this.
He feels guilty, Dave. He's bamboozling him the entire episode. It's the same thing that happens in Donnie Brasco, where Donnie bamboozles Lefty the whole movie, and it doesn't end very well for Lefty, and Donnie feels a tremendous amount of guilt over that.
And basically Bilby's fate is exactly the same as Al Pacino in Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, and so like they don't have to be good people for guilt to take over. You know, it's not like O'Brien woke up and went, well, he shot a guy, you know, I feel great about my actions. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't
know if he should feel great about it, but that's a different cry from like feeling he's responsible for Bilby's family. That in the next episode that kind of picks up from these plot lines.
He shot a guy in front of me, but he also bought me a suit. So
and
his cake is dry, but
we had some fun like breaking into the Bank of Boleus together, and winning some horse races or whatever the heck it was. You know. I guess he feels guilty because he's deceiving him, and normally O'Brien's not someone who would deceive you. I guess he might feel better about his undercover mission if Bilby wasn't such a guy he relates to, because I think it's not a coincidence that they're both Irish and they're both supposed to be sort of like connected here. I think, like in terms of like their backgrounds and that they can easily relate to each other.
They're two men basically from the same place that got put in two very different situations, and based off their situations act completely differently. You know, is it where their circumstance, or is it them as people? You know what I mean? Like, that's the question I think the episode is trying to ask you. You know,
well, the other thing I kept asking myself too is like, in the 24th century, as a human, why would you choose this life?
Well, did he choose it though? Does he choose?
See, it seems like yes. To me, everything in the episode made it seem like it wasn't like, well, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, it's just like he's like, there's so many great opportunities I've had since joining the Orion Syndicate. You know, is kind of what he tells us in this episode, that he likes he sends all his money back home and he plans to retire, but he's not. I don't think he has any moral quandaries. He mentions one time that he would like to get away from the life, but not really. Like it's so in passing that he you know, and I think that like when the Starfleet intelligence guy Chadwick is saying, I don't like feel bad for this guy or for any, like, they murder people. These are bad people. Like if I have to warn the Klingon ambassador that someone's coming to kill him, that's not my problem, you know. And so like I don't know, I kind of sided with him, and then O'Brien punches him out and warns him, which you can call noble, but I don't know. Like,
I don't like gangster movies. I don't care about Donnie Brasco. So like I don't have any romantic notions regarding this subject. It's just stuff happening about characters, majority of which I don't care about, with O'Brien doing stuff away from the war, and then the episode ends. That's what I don't really feel like I have much to contribute for this episode. It's just stuff I'm like, why are we doing this?
there's a cat.
Like
I
the
think this
information that
would've
we
made-
get.
I think this would have made, and I know I poo-pooed this idea for one little ship, but this would have made a good season 1 episode, because as we're getting to know the rest of the cast, we get to have an episode like this with a cast member we already know.
Yeah.
True. Like this, I don't think it would have made it a lot better or worse, but I feel like it would have fit much better into an earlier season.
What do we get out of this episode? The revelation that there's someone in Starfleet that was leaking information. We don't even find out who that person actually is and what impact it has to our characters for the season. It's just a story. It's just a story where stuff happens, and he gets a cat that we never see again.
Gets a cat.
Like,
Brian gets a cat, and they never pay it off.
This is a skippable episode.
Yeah, like I don't come back to this episode very often or ever, but I don't hate it either. I don't think it's a bad thing to watch. Because I do like gangster movies, so I do have that thing where, you know, I can see like this is kind of Star Trek doing a gangster story, you know, and if that's not your flavor, then you won't like this.
It's a piece of the action, but elevated.
Sam says this is a filler episode. Damn right, Sam. Damn right.
There's worse filler episodes. Like you should have seen the one that Kevin and I watched last night on Enterprise.
Well, they're all filler over on Enterprise.
That was a filler. This is at least interesting in some respects, because I like this idea that the Dominion is trying to pull the strings behind the scenes on the war, like by trying to manipulate other things.
And Dave, that sounds actually interesting. Where's the episode regarding that?
What's in here? Like
no.
Like, okay, how does this impact the war?
Well, it ends up being that plot ends up getting thwarted, so it doesn't impact the war. But
does it really seem the importance of it being thwarted? No.
But if O'Brien wasn't here, it would have happened, right?
No. What would have happened is most likely he would have been caught and killed.
This is the second episode in a row where they've done something with the Dominion and then abandoned it. Like the alphas and the gammas, right?
Yeah.
They set that all up and then abandon it. And now this plotting behind the scenes. Do we get this again?
Not
Anything like this?
Not really, like because they kind of sequelize this in the Esri episode where she deals with her family, and that's on New Sydney and et cetera, et cetera. But not really. No, I would say
No.
Not only that, I don't think we ever get another Vorta after this episode, other than Wayun. This is the end, I think, of all the other Vorta. So I think I could be wrong, but
yeah, I'm not 100% on that, but I think you're right. It's mostly going to be Wayun from in the stretch.
So why?
It's not. It's look. I think whoever wrote this episode wanted to do Donnie Brasco. Watch that movie and went, that'd be a good Star Trek episode. And then for some reason, Ira Stephen Bear or whoever was like, all right, just go do it. We need
if you're going to
24 of these.
You couldn't do the story on Voyager at the time, right? Like you would have to do it on Deep Space Nine if you're going to do it at all.
They could have left it as a book and just,
not done it at all.
They could have not done it at all. You're right. Like that's an option. But if they were hot to do a Donnie Brasco episode, and at the time Voyager and Deep Space Nine are going, it makes more sense to do this on Deep Space Nine if you're going to do it at all. But I don't think we needed this either. Like it wasn't necessary for the development of O'Brien's character. I think it's incredibly odd that he's on this mission, and considering he's got a very important role is the chief of operations, as we saw. People can't get their flaming moes, guys, at Quarks, so it's not.
But
going well.
To be fair, there's not a lot of options for it to be other than O'Brien.
Well, I agree. Of the Deep Space Nine cast, they got to tap O'Brien, but it still doesn't make sense for O'Brien in the role he's in for him to go on
it's something in his psychological profile or whatever. They don't explain it, but there's a reason that he's there.
Yeah,
there's reasons,
and we're supposed to accept. Anyway, we're at the part of the episode in the screenshots where Bilby buys him his new suit. Okay, was this a good looking suit to you guys? Like with the green galoshes and green pants and coming up. This is how a gangster would dress in the 24th century.
I don't know. He looks like they bothered to pan up.
He looks like an Irish immigrant just got off the boat in like the 1920s, 1910s. Like I'm like,
where are your potatoes?
Yeah, where's the guys like in gangs in New York where all the Irish guys are getting off the boat and everyone's throwing potatoes at them. He kind of looks like one of those guys, like
Yeah, yeah. How was Cole Meany at this time either? Like it's just like it's a
late 30s probably.
And they're like, how does he look? He's like, I don't know, he looks fine,
Which is the most like, yeah, I believe that performance right there.
yeah. I was like, I agree with you. Thanks. Yeah, but
also like, is he not recognizable at all? I mean, he was on the flagship and ship,
but
and he's.
You do have to remember that this is a galaxy of trillions of people, and so he's not. I think it would be easier for him than Cisco. I think Cisco's probably got a more famous face, but maybe not. Like
they don't have technology to be able to like scan faces and like be like, oh, it's that guy.
Well, we do. In our
Vorta should have known who O'Brien is.
Yeah,
the Vorta that are in the Alpha Quadrant should know that crew, the crew that are on
the one who made first contact with the Dominion.
Yeah.
Did a changeling ever appear as O'Brien?
Yes.
So yes, the Vorta should know automatically.
Or he could have Googled it or whatever back when he went to his ship or wherever he went in between those scenes. But anyway, this is the scene here too where Bilby. This alien with like the thing across his mouth. I've seen this species before, I think. It's an inconvenient place to have a cartilage.
Don't the Lesepians have that?
I think it's the Lesepian. He might be a Lesepian, yeah. And were they the guys who did like that weird thing on O'Brien where like he put him into his weird mind thing? Yeah, it looks like the same species here. Anyway, he's like, I sold you. You accepted payment on those Klingon disruptors. And he's like, oh yeah, well let me show you here. Anyway, wants his money back, doesn't give it to him. So he says, "Oh, let's see." Shoots him in the knee first, or the thigh, I suppose.
In the femur. I'm gonna count to 2 to get your no good yellow belly. So I kept thinking of watching the scene. I'm like, this is the Home Alone guy.
Yeah, yeah. O'Brien doesn't do
You
much
don't
here
even
to
easy
stop it.
Tell me you love me.
Angels,
Love you.
angels with filthy souls.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's
even
like,
filthier.
I
souls.
trust you, but my here Tommy gun doesn't. So I'll
Yeah,
give it
you
a
were
10.
schmooping with her.
Yeah.
1, 2, 10.
And O'Brien plays it here like in sheer horror, and they're, and he's like, oh, Bilby, how could you do this to us? Go back to his apartment here. Bilby, he's not even distraught about having to kill that guy at all. It's more about like
How we gotta feed this cat.
we got to feed this cat. And they start drinking, and this is where he starts talking about like, oh yeah, well, his boss has a guy in Starfleet, who they're getting information from, and it's more about like how he could never get out of the life and things like that. He's like, oh yeah, you got to know a guy in Starfleet? How could that happen? And so O'Brien's basically his mission is kind of done after the scene. He can get out right after the scene, but because of this Dominion thing comes up, he's left in by the Starfleet intelligence guy a little longer.
We're missing in this episode. What we're missing in this episode is, are you a cop?
Are you a cop? Are you a cop?
Yeah.
Or it could be like that scene in like The Departed where like he's hitting Leonardo DiCaprio over the hand or whatever with the boot. This feels like a little bit like The Departed too. I think in some ways, because that's another undercover gangster kind of a thing.
A bunch of Irish references.
More Irish references, yeah. I'm okay with their performances, like I said. Anyway, this is where they get called over, and it's the middle of the night. Let's go over here, and then they meet up in the bar. And I liked this different transporter effect. That was one positive I took from the episode. A new transporter effect. I take what I can get, Jaemeel. That's how it goes.
You don't have to. They can give you something, and you could say, "No, thank you. I want better."
Well, I could. Anyway, the Vorta reveal here is like a big deal. Oh, the Vorta are working with the gangsters. Da, da, da. What's O'Brien going to do now in his fancy new suit? And then Remus is like, I've never seen this guy before. And this is where he's like, I vouch for him. I witness for him, I think they say. It's just like what Al Pacino does in Donnie Brasco for Johnny Depp. And this is, I guess, why O'Brien feels guilty. He's like, I've never even vouched for his other two gangster guys who he known for years.
He's like, I wouldn't vouch for Bashir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
but
the board is like, this is your security arrangement.
Bashir would definitely get someone killed, like almost immediately.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think if Bashir watched Bilby kill that guy, there's no way that Bashir doesn't do something,
Dave, we got a question for you in the chat.
Okay, bring it up.
Okay. Why does Dave, this is from Sam. Why does Dave like bad episodes and hate good episodes? Can you answer that question for Sam?
Well, I don't think that's true. I think we all have our own tastes, and we all have our own things we look for in our stories. So it's
Sam, I hate to tell you this, but Dave is a Karen.
Oh no. Are you feeding this? Oh no. Oh, Karen. Lost all my train of thought now. Any other questions that you want to?
It says you also hate Assignment Earth as well.
I do hate that one. That's not a good one.
That's a
great. At the best, it's good. Okay, it's not great. But anyway, so
I want to hear why Davan likes this episode, because like I could see like a case being made for like the themes and stuff, but like the overall episode is very boring. It's
like considering he doesn't like one little ship, which is what I brought up to him today.
Well, they're completely different though. Like one little ship is silly. Mm-hmm. This episode is like super serious. Too much so, in a way.
And the pacing is awful.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, is this episode not over? Is this a two-parter?
It does sort of feel long, in a way, for a 40-minute Star Trek episode.
How many times does he like leave the bar to go to this alley to talk to this guy? It feels like 5 times.
It's at least 4 scenes, I think. Yeah.
It's too much.
And then they have this scene here
real
where
undercover. They only meet their handlers occasionally, not 3 times a day.
What's with the whole thing too? With they attach like their chain to their wallet or whatever on the suit. Like isn't that something? I guess that's something like kids did in the 90s and stuff. But like
no, kids were doing in 2000s as well.
Okay.
Yes. And it used to have what was not Less Than Jake. What was
Jake Sisko?
No, the guy with the machete in his hand or the butcher's knife in his hand.
Oh, Jason?
No.
Scream?
No, it's like it was a whatever. I'll figure it out.
Okay. Let us know. Anyway, the scene here where they're breaking into the bank, like by basically hacking into the bank. Do you guys enjoy this at all?
No.
Kevin?
No, why?
And I like heist stuff.
It was a heist. Remember last week we were saying that
boring.
You love heists?
There was because the rest of the characters kind of sucked.
Yes.
So
what did I say was important about a heist?
Being entertaining.
No.
Likeable.
So we got a double cross.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have a double cross in this episode, to be fair.
We do, technically.
Go on. Sorry, I can't remember your list.
Okay. We also have the gathering of a crew. What crew does he gather?
Well, the crew's already come together.
Yeah,
already
so
there.
it's not a heist. It's not a heist.
Well, it's still a heist. They stole something.
No, it isn't.
Is it a heist when they steal?
No, the heist.
You need a montage.
Yeah, there's no montage. There you go.
Montage. You're right. This episode is lacking in montages.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for
everything is dark as hell in this episode too. Nothing is well lit. And it's just like, look how dark his face is in this shot. Like
they're supposed to be a seedy underground. They're on like this seedy planet.
They still have to see.
I still have to see his face. They're actors. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not well shot, this episode. There's a bunch of problems with the episode for sure.
It looks like they used like, oh, put the filter on. It's like, what filter? The filter that makes everything look like mud.
Yeah. Not
it's
the
not
movie
like this, especially when they're in like those dark and like smoky alleys and stuff, or whatever.
You could see only 2 other people, kinda, and then like, is there 3 people or is there 4? I can't tell in this picture.
Which filter should we use? The one called drab, if you have it. Like
nice and drab.
Can we light the scene just with that light bulb on the table?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And then Bilby gets O'Brien a girl hair.
It's probably the best part of the episode. I mean,
yeah, O'Brien's like, O'Brien can't tell him he's married. I guess it doesn't want it. He's like, well, you're gonna hurt this girl's feelings. What are you talking about?
He could have said he was married.
He's like, you're into girls, aren't you? He goes like, of course I'm into girls. He like, because I guess Bilby would have got him a guy next. Or
I have
whatever.
a girlfriend. Sid Quinn. A few days, a week, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. The dialogue is sloppy in a bunch of different parts.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy's the worst gangster ever. Like, how he's falling for this?
Why couldn't he say he was married, Dave?
Who?
Why couldn't O'Brien say he was married?
I don't know.
He could have said he was married. I didn't understand that.
They already researched him, and it wasn't part of his backstory.
Yeah. Cool. Great job. Then you would have known I was single, but I just said I was a girlfriend, right? Which makes more sense that you have a wife that you no longer see and that you pine over, right? It would explain your bad luck, right? It would explain why you keep doing the things that you're doing to try to make a positive headway, right? Mm-hmm. If someone has nothing to lose, you can't trust them too much.
Right. Yeah. Well, this guy is the Bilby character does trust O'Brien just way too much.
Yeah, he's far too trusting for a gangster.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I would like if it's like O'Brien had some sad story about how he married this woman and he's in love with her, but unfortunately his bad luck prevented him from getting to her, and he's determined to find a way to make enough money to blah blah blah. Right? You see that the person is going to be locked into whatever it takes type of situation, which is who you can trust because his circumstances kind of forces him to be someone who relies on you.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
I just feel like I'm supposed to like care about certain situations and things in this episode, and it's just because, and they don't give me anything I can really grasp onto. Right? I'm supposed to believe that this person is trusting of O'Brien, and I'm supposed to believe that O'Brien's story makes sense, and that there was no other way for this whole scenario to come to be. I'm supposed to believe it's important for me to keep watching even after O'Brien figured out that there's, who the inside man in Starfleet is, right? I just don't like this episode at all. And my ratings will reflect that.
It's never been one of my favorites either by any means, but I'm just trying to look for what the good might be in this episode.
Why is it so dark?
Yeah, like you could only see. Go back to that last shot, dude. You see O'Brien's forehead, and that's about it.
That Irish forehead is going to have the reflection.
Make it a silhouette. Why? Like
it's shot so terribly. It really
is so unambitious. It's like we're just gonna have bad lighting, and that's gonna be our creative our creative means of presentation.
It's gonna darken it up. You won't be able to see anything, and when you do see something, you won't even know what's going on. And when you do know what's going on, it won't make any sense,
and you won't like it either.
You won't like
I remember watching this with Ashley for her first time watching this episode, and she was it ended, and she's like, "What the fuck was that?" I hated that.
Yeah, the way it ends too, you're just like, that's the end of the episode? What happened? Why did that felt like 2 hours. What happened?
Yeah, I like how he comes back and he tells Bashir, because of course Keiko's not there. And
No, he wouldn't talk to her.
That's the wife he really was talking that I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. They couldn't bring in Rosalind Chow for one scene even. She just like Miles. Anyway.
Even the dark periods where they're supposedly outside, the lighting doesn't make even any sense for it to be anywhere. It's not a street light. It seems like artificial lighting from like a light bulb that's like no.
Yeah, they got these like light bulbs and whatever. And this is the whole scene here where Ramus, the guy who's above whatever his name is, Bilby, and then this Vorta guy, and they're trying to figure who's the rat. Let's find the rat, on the traitor. And then the Vorta's like, I want to see if I can tell who the traitor is by looking into his eyes. This went on for too long, by the way.
Yeah.
And he looks at here, but this is meant to they found out O'Brien is undercover here. And the tension's coming up here. Who are they going to implicate? And he points at O'Brien, but then this guy's like, yes, I knew it was him. I've always known, which is, of course, what the person who's really guilty always does. And then this Bolian bartender just shoots him in the back.
Never turn your back on a Bolian.
His reaction is just like, oh. And then he goes, oh. He's out. And that's that. Yeah, he was selling on the side. That was his crime. They didn't think he was had sold them out per se. And then they drag him off here. I guess this is just to remind us that the Orion Syndicate is dangerous, or they'll kill people. I guess they'll kill you if you get out of line.
They didn't kill him. Didn't they just knock him out so they can torture him?
Oh, I thought they killed him.
Did it feel like it killed him?
I thought they killed him.
I thought they killed him. Yeah. I didn't think they stunned him to torture him at all. Anyway, so they say, "Hey, will you go kill this Klingon ambassador?" And then O'Brien starts piping up, "Oh, you want it to look like he was killed by a rival house," which kind of ties into the earlier part of the episode where they're like, "Oh, because when O'Brien has to fix the Klingon disruptors, he gets it from the Klingon ambassador, and he goes, 'There's a Klingon ambassador on this planet. Gowron must really hate this guy,' and it turns out that is exactly is right." Because this is a bad posting, and this Klingon ambassador thinks that the Klingons should get out of the Dominion War, apparently, and they're hoping to make him a martyr. That's like the plot. But
That seems interesting. Really wish they delved into that.
No,
Instead of
Bill.
Bilby and his
Yeah.
dry ass
Cake. Yeah, it's cake and his kids and the fact, like Bilby not well written character. It's just like you're right, Dave, as well. He's not sympathetic. He shoots a guy in the leg and then kills him in cold blood, and then we're supposed to like this
feel
guy?
bad for him or
Yeah.
sympathize with him.
And I don't believe that he's made it this high in an organization like this,
Actually,
being such a hapless moron.
Right.
yeah, and the thing that's kind of why like Donnie Brasco works as a movie, because Lefty is not like the cold blood killer, that.
But he's still a dangerous guy,
Yes.
and and then and you see how he's like, you understand Donnie Brasco's point of view and why he feels this connection, because the movie does a better job of that than this episode does, because they have 2 hours to do that, and this has 40 minutes. And,
No, I just think it's poorly written.
well, that too.
Yeah, it's this episode's poorly written. Let's call it.
Oh, guys, sometimes there's lightning that gives us light. I forgot. Like there were these flashes of lightning sometimes that would come up.
Donnie Brasco is 2 hours and 7 minutes.
Yeah. This is where O'Brien gets all mad. This is where I pulled a couple quotes here where he's just like, You're
setting them up to be murdered?
Murdered.
He's like, no, the Orions are the people who kill people.
We just get Klingons to do it for us.
I loved my parents.
Yeah.
You told me we were going to make a case against Bilby. You told me he was going to prison.
He lied. That's how it goes.
Yeah, he's
He
like, well,
even
yeah.
said that to him because I lied, basically.
Yeah, I saw you were getting too close, and
Every time I see him, I like, especially at the beginning of the episode when they first show this guy from Starfleet, I'm like, he looks like Tim Robbins, like, So I'm like, why is he talking to Shawshank? What's going on? Like,
he's like, he calls him. We never even know this guy's name throughout the episode. And he calls him Chadwick here at the right before he punches him. Maybe a relative of Melissa Chadwick, who's to say, in a future time. And he knocks this guy out, and he also says that this gets left out of the official report. So I guess Chadwick forgave him this.
That is a wonderfully lit shot right there.
It's not.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, like I deleted just a lot of screenshots, just like because they were so hard to see, and these were no exception.
They were just black screens. It was more theater of the mind. It was a Star Trek radio theater episode, really.
Yeah, jeez.
Yep. Yeah. The cat.
We should do this one.
Oh, we'd be bored to tears.
Bad episodes are always the most fun.
That's true. You setting him up to be murdered? Whoever could do that best audition should play O'Brien. And then he's like, "You can't go. It's a trap." He's like, "What? It's a trap." And this whole like disbelief here, and like, I don't know, like I was thinking of like Mr. White in Reservoir Dogs when he finds out Mr. Orange is the rat, and I was just like, yeah, like I feel like that Bilby would kill him. He killed the guy for selling him bad disruptors. This seems like more of a betrayal.
Yeah, it's way more of a betrayal.
Yeah.
But he likes O'Brien.
Likes or not, he could, if he kills O'Brien, he's at least have like, hey, O'Brien was, an informer. I killed him. We got to push back the plans. At least you took accountability. It's a better excuse than like, well, I still got to do it anyways.
He has to basically commit suicide here. That's his only option, and make it seem like he never knew.
Why does he like O'Brien?
Because he fixed something, or no, because he was honest about the cake.
I feel like that's the only the episode only explains that.
Yeah.
That and the fact I think they're both like Irish, and the second, maybe the third thing is O'Brien likes girls. I mean, other than
but he doesn't really demonstrate that to him.
And O'Brien lies to him about like when he says that he stole all those parts, and he says,
Oh.
I didn't want to implicate you, so I didn't say anything. Like
Right.
that is such a transparent lie. Like, how did this guy end up this high in the O'Brien syndicate? Like,
how did nobody read the script? That's perfect. Like, how was like how did they not read the script and go, hey, maybe go do a rewrite on that, because like that's not believable.
Because
You
like
know?
all the scripts coming up are so good.
Right.
it was 90s TV.
Yeah.
You know,
But like we watched like Waltz, and we've watched some really good episodes in this season where we're blown away. So this is the same show, and we know how good the show can be. This is not my least favorite episode, but
Look, the guy that wrote this episode only wrote one other Star DS9 episode, and I
Which
think
one?
Vortex.
oh,
Good. Take us out of your precious vortex.
The other episode he wrote was Treachery, Faith, and the Great River, which
What?
I'm guessing is this. Okay, so it's a Vorta offers Odo valuable information on the Dominion in exchange for asylum. Meanwhile, Nog tries his Ferengi knowledge as he wheels and deals for a valuable piece of equipment for Chief O'Brien.
the Great River. Yeah.
Is that the sequel to this episode?
no.
No.
It's a different.
Is it season 7?
Season 7? Yeah.
Okay. I don't really remember that either, but we'll cover that next
It's
season.
not great.
Yes. Oh my god.
Oh, it's the episode where Odo has Wayun, and they're like he's trying to save like the Wayun that's like basically defects.
Yeah.
And so like it's that episode, and they're in the runabout and they're running away, and it's that episode. But again, not the best.
All right, he says, "Will you take care of the cat by the end of this?" The performance here on Tate, where he's, we see his family, and we find out that the wife's not nice. She keeps taking next season.
Could they made the kids look more Irish?
And she can't bake for shit.
She can't bake, and she starts exploiting the like the Ezri's family in the future episode. We never see her, but she dies too, right? Doesn't she get killed by like Ezri's
where are
brother
the potatoes?
or something? Yeah, I think
They look
Ezri's brother
Irish
killed
as
her.
hell. I thought redheads were supposed to be extinct by this time.
So Beverly Crusher is
You know
holding
how bad the family is when he won't send the cat back to them.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather you who betrayed me.
Because he could have asked, "Can you make sure that this cat gets to my family?" He doesn't even go that far. He's
He
like,
doesn't even say go back and check on my family. Just look after the cat.
Yeah. And O'Brien, and then he goes, "Do you have a family where you're from?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That's good." I'm like, "Is it?" All
It's
right.
the most important thing.
It's the most important thing, he keeps saying. And then he walks off to try to kill a Klingon ambassador, even though he knows he will get killed. And then we come back to the station to end the episode. O'Brien, who hasn't even changed out of his gangster suit. He likes his gangster threads. He's talking to Bashir, of course, and feeling really bad about the whole thing and guilty about the whole thing for whatever reason. Because he's not used to being a deceiver guy, I guess. And he's like, "Well, he could have killed you if you told him. What'd you do that for?" And he's like, "I had to." And then Bashir just kind of tries to console him and then walks off. And then we get the cat who comes over to comfort O'Brien. And it's O'Brien and his kitty to end the episode. And that's that.
And credits.
And credits.
Lord.
All right, Jeff, help us out here. Give us some fun facts. Give us some double F. Maybe there's something in this episode we're not getting.
There are some interesting things that might explain why this episode is what it is. Okay. So the most important fun fact is the fact that Okay, do you guys know who the actor that his name is Charles Hallahan was? He was in The Thing and The Fan. He's a very famous character actor. He's been in lots of things. But anyway, he was supposed to play Bilby in this episode, but he died right before they were going to go shoot it. So they basically got Nick Tate, who was came in second in the casting.
Okay. I don't think Nick Tate's the problem with the episode.
Okay, but I'm just explaining that they basically brought him in at the last minute and be like, okay, now you're this guy, go. You know? So, and I don't think he necessarily has a bad performance, but when a character is written for somebody or like a certain idea of like who they cast, and then you bring in the guy that was like the understudy, you might not get exactly what you wanted. Okay, so that's
okay.
Anyway,
So they wrote it with somebody in mind, but that person died. Okay.
with Charles Hallahan, yeah, and he had a fatal heart attack. So
Sometimes that works out in the opposite way. Sometimes things get written for somebody in mind, and then somebody else ends up in the role, and it ends up being iconic. So it could.
Like,
Well, I don't know.
there are examples.
I
but-
know that's happened. Just because I can't cite that.
I'm just saying, you
There are-
bring an example and don't have any
Oh my
examples
God,
for that
Jaemeel.
examples.
Oh my god! I guess I am a male Karen.
It is.
I didn't say male.
Sam did.
It's him. Yeah. So, okay. So, all right. So, a new transporter effect was designed for this episode. Dave pointed it out. It's for the scene where Ramus and Gelnon.
Hold on, I can remember one right off the bat.
What's
Okay. Al Pacino was supposed to be Han Solo.
He didn't die.
He didn't die, but he didn't end up in the role. He turned it down, so it went to Harrison Ford. I don't think it. I think that Harrison Ford is pretty iconic
You
as Han Solo.
specified a very specific point of view or line of thought, and your example still does not align with that. So
I'm not.
keep
You get
trying.
no more examples, Jaemeel. You're. Keep going, Jeff.
I do think it's happened before, though. I will.
Of course it's happened, but Jaemeel doesn't believe me because I don't have it.
You have not provided any sources.
It's not an essay.
I hope you are better prepared on Sunday.
Oh,
All I'm saying.
I already know I'm doomed. Don't worry. It's
It's between me and Josh, so that's really what it comes down to. Anyway, Gelnon, who was played by a guy named Leyland Crook, was the Vorta who commanded the Jem'Hadar team who commandeered the USS Defiant in the previous episode. The one
it's the same Vorta, isn't it?
same Vorta guy.
Yep.
You could almost say that these episodes are irrelevant, sister episodes to each other because nobody cares about these episodes. They're easy to skip, and like they just kind of go together. So I mean, it makes sense that they're back to back, and that you skip them to get to the good stuff. Let's be real. Farius Prime, which was mentioned in the Deep Space episode The Maquis Part 1, as a side note, played a major part in the story and was mentioned once again in Prodigal Daughter, which continues the arc of O'Brien's involvement with Bilby.
Oh, Sam thinks you're going to bring sexist comments on the trivial debates on Sunday.
I had no sexist comment, misogynistic now.
Yeah, correct. Get it right, Sam. He just wanted sexy female umpires to help increase baseball attendance.
It was a good argument. Mostly men watch baseball anyway. Veteran character actor John Davis Chandler's. This was his last acting role. That's going to be a theme in this episode, by the way. There was another.
This is the last time somebody
Episode
wrote
was-
an episode. This is the last time somebody directed an episode.
So
This
the
is the-
episode was so bad that it killed
Killed a few careers. The character Bilby mentions his family lives in New Sydney, and Nick Tate was born in Sydney. Nick Tate is actually, in fact, Australian. That's also going to come up later. Nick Tate also played Durgo in the Next Gen episode Final Mission.
Durgo?
Durgo. Don't know who that is.
I don't know.
The Syndicate had previously been mentioned in the DS9 episode The Ascent, where it planted a bomb on a crippled runabout carrying Quark and Odo to a trial where Quark was scheduled to testify against it. In a simple investigation, where Arissa is working on an undercover agent in an attempt to infiltrate it. Okay. Okay, so going back to the Australian theme. A bilby is an Australian marsupial which resembles a rabbit with a pointy snout. The actor Nick Tate is Australian. So there you go.
Correlation makes
correlation.
absolute sense.
I don't know if you know how references work,
Yes.
but that's how they work. The Worf, Dax, Bashir, Lita, and Quark visited Risa in Let He Who Is Without Sin. Around the same time, Bilby claims Ramus persuaded a Starfleet officer working at Risa's weather control station to become an operative for the Syndicate. There's no indication that this character was ever seen on screen in the earlier episode.
Which character?
The one that messed with the weather system in that episode, because like Bilby mentioned.
Oh yeah. Well, you just gotta find out who was running the weather system on Risa a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question, Dave. Which character? Indeed.
Okay, this episode contains one of the few canon references to homosexuality in Star Trek. When O'Brien turns down a female escort, Bilby states, "Don't tell me you don't like girls." I don't know if is that a reference to homosexuality, or is it just like he could be asexual?
He could
Very
be,
true.
He could be a eunuch for all we know.
Yeah. Although it is explicitly stated, Chadwick appears to work for the infamous Section 31.
No, he works for Starfleet Intelligence.
That's not what the reference says. The card says Moops. Okay. Carlos Carrasco had previously appeared as Dagor in The House of Quark and a Klingon officer in Shattered Mirror, as well as Barat in the Voyager episode Fair Trade.
I'm just trying to see if I can figure out what Nick Tate played in his previous episode that he was in.
Fun fact about Nick Tate. Have you guys ever seen the episode of Lost called Tabula Rasa? That's the episode where Kate is in Australia and she's on the run, and this guy picks her up and he takes her back to her house, and then he backstabs her, he double crosses her, and then
is that him?
That's him.
That's Bilby.
That's him.
Yeah.
Oh,
So he can act.
Well, he clearly in this episode, because he's super Australian in real life, and this was a completely different accent.
Super Australian. Oi!
Oi! Yeah, he was going about billabongs and waltzing Matilda and all those things.
You murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than my best friend.
He talked about the Great Emu War.
But his character Durgo in the Star Trek Next Generation episode, is that what it was? Human. He gets like put into like a crystalline entity thing. Is that what this is? I don't know. Like I don't even remember this episode. Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I have one more. So it's another Nick Tate goodie. He is well known among sci-fi fans for playing the regular character Alan Carter on the British cult sci-fi series Space 1999, which debuted in 1975.
Oh, now I remember what this was. Okay, the episode where it's Wesley Crusher and Picard on like this desert planet. It's like the last mission before Wesley Crusher goes off to Starfleet Academy and basically leaves the show. And then there's this other guy with them who gets like who gets killed by this like device that has the water. You guys remember that at all?
Nope.
Well, that was Nick Tate.
Cool.
So
that's really it for this. Not a lot of fun facts. It wasn't that fun of an episode.
All right. Was that fun? All right. Well, let's go to our ratings. Davin's already given this an 8, guys. So, Jeff, you want to start us?
I'm gonna give it like a 5.5.
5.5. The most I'll go 6.5.
4.9.
4.9 from Jaemeel.
Slightly better than One Little Ship.
Yeah. 5.
5 from Kevin and 8 from Davin. So he's
which is ridiculous.
This is 7.3 on IMDb.
Sam gives it a 2.3.
Alan Eastman directed this. A Canadian, not Alan Croker, Alan Eastman, who never directed another episode of Deep Space Nine. Philip Kim, who never.
I wonder why they were like, you need to use lights, you know.
He was a Canadian Alan Eastman, but yeah, it's not so good.
He was supposed to bring his own lights and he forgot.
You forgot him. You forgot him at home, guys. All right. And so the next episode we're looking at is called Change of Heart, which is the episode where Worf and Dax go on that side mission to get that Cardassian like defector, and then she gets hurt, and then he has to like make the decision about leaving her in the jungle or going back, or continuing with the mission. I like that episode better, although I don't necessarily, I think it's the ending of it I find tough. But anyway, Sam's giving this a 2.3, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, what, the next episode? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Change of Heart. Are you looking forward to that one, Jeff?
Not a fan of it. I watched it right after this episode. Terrible. It was really bad.
This is a rough stretch.
Yeah.
It's a
I
rough
thought this was supposed to be the best season.
I think 5 is crushing it. But you know what the thing is? The high points in 6 are so good.
Right. Like
forgives
Pale
it.
Moonlight and stuff like that. Yeah.
And
But-
Far Beyond the Stars. And
Was
all
it
that
the high tide raises all ships?
Plus, we have like Resurrection this season, so I don't think that it's
Valorant?
not looking good for season 6 to beat season 5 overall. But
Dave, you didn't mention Valorant.
Valiant,
Valiant, yeah.
Red Squad,
Red Squad.
Red Squad. All right, well I think we can wrap up tonight on this episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, titled "Honor Among Thieves." I'm not sure there was. But we'll be back to talk about Change of Heart next. Maybe something will change. Jeff's gonna not like it. We know that for sure. But we'll see how the rest of us feel.
I won't have a change of heart. I'll tell you.
He won't change his heart on Change of Heart. And I think after that, there's what do we got? Oh yeah, Wrongers Darker Than Death or Night comes after that, which is like Ducat comes back. That can't be bad. David.
What was the average for season 5?
Average for season 5 was 8.6.
8.6. And where we are currently, season 6 so far?
8.2
Ooh.
average. So it's not looking great, but it's still a very good season. I just don't think, I think it's just got some of these episodes in here. You're like, well, I could probably do without. I could do without Mirror Brile. I could do without O'Brien on a side mission off to the Orion Syndicate.
That might be the worst episode of the entire series.
As of right now, I think it has the lowest ranking of any
What
show.
did I give it? Did I give it a 2?
You gave that. Here, let's pull it up. You
I gave
gave
it a 0. I'm sure of it.
You gave it 1.5.
Okay.
What's the worst one?
Resurrection, I think, is the lowest episode we've ever rated.
Kevin gave it a 0. I love it.
0. Yeah.
This is a straight up 0. After he gave it 3 10s in a row. The big 0.
I gave it 0.5.
Keep having more. I was the high point that I gave 2.5.
What episode was that? What happens?
That's Mirror Brile.
Mirror Brile.
Oh,
How low can you go?
that was.
If you're gonna do the Mirror Universe, bring Brile.
I feel better about my one little ship and this episode rating. Like,
What'd you
it
give
kind
one
of-
little ship? 4 point. You liked one little ship less than this? 4.8?
Yes, I did.
Me too. I like
You
this
make
one
no
more.
sense. You guys make no sense. That
Because
episode-
once again, it was supposed to be a fun episode, so I could let like some of the kookiness go. This is just I don't like gangster shows or movies,
all right.
right? So I'm already coming in at a disadvantage, and then I don't care what happens in the entire episode. It's
I'm just saying, there's anything that even comes close to 1.3. I don't think there is.
I like the gangster movie stuff, but this one,
Second
Seven.
Sight,
This
season
one-
2, we gave it 2.7, but that's not. That's
they might as well have had like
Vortex
Cis-
2.7.
They might as well have had Cisco having Jake get married and people are coming to him asking him for favors on the day of his son's wedding, or they might as well have done that. That's what this episode was. Like, it was like, could they have been more blatant with their rip-offness of Donnie Brasco?
yeah.
Like, how
Probably
did this
not.
get passed? Like,
yeah. I'm surprised they weren't sued for just
Yeah.
like for just lifting the story, or like they didn't have to put based on a true story.
We're like,
Okay,
if we ask some of the cast members, like, how'd you feel about this episode? What episode? The Donnie Brasco episode. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, I remember that one.
No, it's right.
That's exactly what's gonna
If
happen.
you ask Colmini, like, how did it feel playing Johnny Depp?
a year after he did,
Yeah.
or his character in that. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being with us tonight. Check out our other podcasts here on Live Long and Podcast. We're on all the time. Mondays, we have our ongoing series where we do Star Trek Enterprise. Kevin and I, Jody, Adam, Davan. We just did an episode last night called Extinction. It was a bit of a controversial episode. But we're in the Xindi War of season 3. So if you want to hear our take on that, check those out. Also, we'll be back to talk about new episodes like Star Trek. I guess it's Star Trek Picard is the next one we're going to be doing February 16th. That's coming back. And then presumably, Discovery and Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks later this year. And Prodigy whenever that comes back. So lots going on in our Star Trek reviews. Star Trek Radio Theater, which we're on hiatus right now, but we finished up season 3 with Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. And you should check out the other great podcasts. Also within Live Long and Podcast, we do like our science division does like things like debates and trivia and different Class L probes and things like that, as well as the Locutors of Trek with their longer form podcasts and going into the deep dive of Star Trek questions like, was this episode good or not?
No.
When are we coming to Newfoundland? I don't know. We got to get when our fans demand it, I suppose. We'll get the numbers. Check out the United Federation of Podcasts, which is what we're part of in our affiliate. You can check us out at ufpodcast.com. That's our website. And check out all our great shows like Trivial Debates. Coming up this Sunday, Jaemeel's hosting. I'm competing, Jeff's competing, and Josh Foster in a themed episode around reality TV.
And there might be a special surprise.
There might be a special surprise. Yes, I had lunch today with Foster. He's still stressing out about it, but it's all good. It's going to be a competition.
You told him there's no prizes or stakes of any kind, right?
Yes, but Foster.
Yeah.
So
I've already informed all the contestants that there are some questions that if the answer is not good enough and the debate isn't good enough, no one gets any points.
All right, you're a tough judge, Jaemeel. You don't.
I felt somewhat insulted by some of the comments I was receiving regarding some of the questions. So
for me,
it did not come from just one place.
Okay. Well, was it Jeff? What did you do to insult Jaemeel?
What's that? What do I do?
Yeah, because Jaemeel was feeling insulted by his questions or people questioning his questions in Trivial Debates.
I didn't question him at all.
So it must have been me or it was Foster.
All I asked was, did you like the answers? And he said, I can't give you an answer on that one way or another. It's the veracity of your argument.
Well, would that insult Jaemeel? I don't think it would insult Jaemeel, that question, but I don't know. So we'll see.
You can ask him. He's right there.
I'm right here.
But will he tell us? Jaemeel,
what?
was that such
everyone okay. I'm the wild card answer better be good. That's all I'm
bringing it. I was just trying to wrap my head around what you were getting at with the question, but yeah.
I didn't think it was extremely difficult and
well, we all have our different opinions.
Okay.
I'm proud of my answer. I have exactly the angle I want to go with on the wild card.
I'm happy with what I ended up with, but it just took me a while to wrap my head around it.
Jeff, I don't think I was asking much for that question.
You wanted to take a current. It had to be a current sitcom.
So okay,
current.
All cards on the table. The wild card question is right. Take a current TV sitcom.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, that's the hardest part of the question.
How is that the hardest?
Because
question?
I don't watch sitcoms.
So there's questions that come up in Trivial Debates I don't have any clue about. I do research. You guys had 2 extra weeks. I put the answers early.
See, for me, I have an advantage in this because I don't watch sitcoms either, Dave, but Amanda does. So by osmosis, I watch these shows, and I'm like, okay.
And then it was like take the premise of this current sitcom. And then turn it into reality TV. And I was just like, well, why would I do that?
That's what I'm asking you to do. You don't have to question the why. You just do.
And I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm doing it. It just took me a while to get there.
Look,
it wasn't about insulting you. It was just like
I've never questioned a question that I've received.
Well, I'm also the producer of the show, and I need to understand what's going on. So I was wearing
Are
both
you
hats.
producing? I thought Eamon was producing.
I'm supervising producer for this one. So it's
I trust Eamon. Eamon's got it.
yeah. I was just had to understand. Okay. Anyway, so Trivial Debates Sunday. It's going to be fun. Check that out. Lots of controversy. Also, we have KBBBL on Fridays with Davan and Francis and Bakers talk about Simpsons episodes. The Super Mater Brothers podcasting. We are brothers! Where we cover shows like reality, like Survivor and Big Brother and different things like that. Also, we have our Marvel division over there, the Mary Mater Marvel Society. Dave, Devin, and Jaemeel will be covering Ant-Man next when that comes out. We also have the Hellbound podcast with Michael Chan, Alex Blackburns, Wednesdays, audio format only. They cover horror in particular. X-Rated, the X-Men, the animated review show. That's with Davan and Andres on Tuesdays, although they did put out one last night. They were on tonight. They had to switch it up, but normally on Tuesdays.
They did it on Monday.
They were Monday last night. Graphics History podcast with Andre. And Hold Up will be on tomorrow with Davan and Chris Murphy. They're talking war movies, 1917, A Bridge Too Far, and Bridge Over the River Kwai, I believe.
And 1917.
And 1917, yes.
Yes. With who's it? Not Murphy. Who's the guest star?
Oh, I don't know. Did they get somebody?
They did get someone.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Not
know
me.
who it was. Yeah. But yeah, that should be good. And I think that's it, guys. So we'll wrap up for tonight. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you next time. Jeff, I guess, already left. And you know, let's head out of here on the O'Brien quote. We'll see you next time.
You're setting them up to be murdered? You told me we were going to make a case against Bilby. You told me he was going to prison.